Welcome to another edition of the CFL Summer Showcase Northern Lights. Today, with my trusty co-host Sam Shady over there, we are going to be talking about breaking news, player signings, injuries, everything your CFL up there in the north. Stick around, and we'll be right back. I got a little distracted, had some technical difficulties on my end and got distracted. So my apologies for the intro. And I meant to mention that today's episode of Summer Showcase Northern Lights is brought to you by Current Bank and Upside as well here on the Shady Sports Network. Sam, good morning, my man. How are you?
Doing great. Looking forward to talking about some CFL. I know it's been a little while. I apologize. I had quite a bit of some things come up last weekend. So actually last 3 weeks, honestly. So glad to be back.
Yeah, glad to be back here as well as we talk about breaking news and obviously some UFL players that have signed. And obviously the NFL season has started, so there's been some preseason cuts, some CFL mainstays that had opportunities have been released and get a chance to go back to the CFL as well. We'll talk about that today as well, of course. Again, apologies for the lead in. I got a little bit distracted with some technical difficulties on my end and lost concentration there. It'll be better next time. So for you viewers out there, for sure. Let's first start with one of the top mainstays that people know about. Obviously, we know. I believe he was the first pick in. Was it the XFL draft or the USFL draft? It was the XFL draft, wasn't it? Shea Patterson. No, it was the USFL draft.
Yeah, USFL
back
draft. Right.
In this day. Quarterback Shea Patterson signed with Montreal. Now, obviously, Sam, we know that Montreal has had an abundance of injury issues at the quarterback position. Caleb Evans, who's their third stringer, went down after Davis Alexander got hurt, and McLeod Bethel Thompson got hurt. This isn't really a surprising move that it's a quarterback that Montreal signed, but are you surprised that Shea Patterson, who actually has kind of a little bit of I guess some success at the CFL level, probably not a ton, but he's had some success. Are you surprised by the name they brought in?
Man, this is kind of a hard question to answer. So yes and no. I am a little surprised because for some weird reason, I just felt like Shea Patterson would end up back in Saskatchewan at some point. I don't know why I felt like that. But at the end of the day, obviously he ends up in Toronto instead. It's not necessarily Montreal. So it's not necessarily surprising that they signed him because, like you said, they've had a lot of injuries there at quarterback, Davis Alexander, Caleb Evans. But I think the Caleb Evans injury is exactly what spurred this move. Shea Patterson was kind of the functional third down quarterback or short yardage quarterback for Saskatchewan. in previous seasons. So I'm not entirely surprised to see him brought in as kind of a 1-for-1 replacement for Caleb Evans. Now, what I am surprised by is the fact that they also signed Cameron Dukes like a week or two ago. So now you have two kind of mobile backups. They've brought in, quite a bit of veteran depth at this point. It kind of makes me wonder, when will we see Davis Alexander back at this point?
I think the thing that stuck out to me the most with both the Cameron Duke signing and the Shea Patterson signing is more or less along the lines of his playing style is very similar to Davis Alexander's and Caleb Evans. Not so much Macabre Bethel Thompson, because he's not he's not as spry as he used to be, a young chicken, a spring chicken, as they say. But his playing style is very similar. Move the pocket, be a little more mobile. Get outside the box sometimes, make those throws, and that's what Patterson does, and that's very similarly to what and how Davis Alexander plays the game. And obviously we know about Cameron Dukes and his ability to be mobile as well. So I thought that was kind of interesting that it was they found two guys that kind of mirror what Caleb Evans and Davis Alexander do, as far as the style of play is concerned. Maybe not necessarily the talent level, but the style of play per se. So maybe that's what Montreal wanted and needed, and that's why they went and got Shea.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, honestly, there's a lot of intelligence bringing in a quarterback that can kind of run your offense, and you don't necessarily have to cater to their strengths and completely change what you do. So Montreal's making some smart decisions in terms of bringing in quarterbacks that have been there, have started games. And honestly, it's to their benefit that some of these guys are still available at this point in the season. Pivoting a little bit, we have a lot of news coming out of Toronto. The Argonauts made a trio of moves recently to bring in some UFL players, two UFL players, and then also a recent CFL draft pick. They brought in quarterback Max Duggan and defensive lineman Joe Wallace, who was previously with the DC Defenders. Duggan was the starting quarterback for the tail end of the season for the St. Louis Battlehawks after an injury to Manny Wilkins. So the other third player there is Dre Dorian, and he was selected in the 2025 CFL draft. I don't recall off the top of my head where he was selected pick wise, but he was originally selected by, I believe, BC, and then was let go and has kind of bounced around since then. So interesting trio of moves for the Argos. What do you think Max Duggan pans out to be for Toronto?
I think this is the thing where Duggan is going to double dip. We talk about it numerous times about players playing for both leagues because of the way it works. I think this works for Duggan too, because I think it just keeps him in shape and it keeps him ready in case the UFL. I fully expect him back in St. Louis next year. I don't think that the CFL is going to say no to him doing it, but I think this also puts the foot in the door for Duggan to be able to come in at any point in time during the year, or if for whatever reason he flames out in the UFL, he has a home now in the CFL. It tends to seem like this is kind of what the CFL does, is they kind of bring in some players, kind of let them get their feet wet a little bit, and give them a chance and opportunity to say, hey, like down the road, if something for some reason doesn't pan out, you can always come back here as long as we have a spot for you, type of situation. So it's relationship building. I mean, unfortunately in the world of football, there's politics involved with a lot of stuff, and you kind of got to politic that. And I think that with Duggan, this is perfect for him. As much as it is Toronto, who obviously we don't know what's happening with Chad Kelly. Nick Arbuckle has had his ups and downs all year long. But this gives them a chance to maybe get a guy who has some talent, and he proved last year he can ball, and hopefully maybe they get a little bit of a depth piece with him they can rely on down the road if they need to. So I'm more excited about the Joe Wallace signing personally.
Joe Wallace is a great player.
I really like Joe Wallace a lot. He did a lot for that DC Defenders defensive line. He was a staple for them this year as they went to the UFL championship game and won the championship. So I'm excited for him there. And maybe this is Toronto's way of saying, hey, we're still not out of this. Maybe we can kind of make a little bit of a run. And if we need to turn to Duggan, he had success, and Joe Wallace will help solidify our defensive line a little bit. So,
Yeah,
hopefully we'll see what happens.
I tend to agree with you. I think this is more a depth piece. I don't think Duggan's going to come in and unseat Arbuckle anytime soon. But I mean, at the very least, you see what you get there, and I think he's also got a high floor in terms of the CFL style of play because of his mobility. He can come in and be that short yardage guy, which I think Arbuckle's been serving that role for him so far this season. So to take some of those hits off Arbuckle, that might have enough value in itself for that signing to make sense. And then, as you mentioned, Joe Wallace, fresh off of a UFL championship game. I mean, you always want to bring in players that know how to win. And, that, I mean, obviously that's kind of a little bit of an overblown statement, but at the same time, he's been on a very successful DC team for multiple years. DC has sent a ton of players to the NFL. So, and when you look at it from that perspective, they're getting a very high caliber player who's again got a high floor, but you don't know what his ceiling can be in the CFL. So he could come in and he could be a role player. He could come in and he could be just depth, or he could come in and potentially take over a starting gig long term. So great move by Toronto. And then I also like the Dre Dorian move because he plays primarily center, can shift over to guard a little bit, and he's really young. High upside player, but although he has been cut by 2 other CFL teams at this point, so you don't really know what you're getting there. But at the same time, low risk, potentially high reward situation for Toronto at this point in the season. So why not make that move?
Yeah, and speaking of defensive linemen or speaking of former UFL players of in some sense, the BC Lions also signed defensive lineman Levy Bell, who played with the Michigan Panthers in 2023, spent some time with the Seattle Seahawks, I think, on the practice squad last year for them as well. He had 10 tackles and 1 sack in the preseason with the Seahawks. BC brings him in. I think this is part of BC also trying to revamp this defensive line, maybe try to help shed some of the run capabilities. It's a depth piece. He'll probably, he might make his debut this week, as this news is a little bit older, I think, or is this newer? I don't see a date on this, but
yeah, it's definitely last week.
So there's a chance he can make his debut this weekend with them, with Labor Day weekend, which is a big, 3 games up there, up north for Canada, down here, Labor Day as well. BC also made another move where they signed DJ Waldron recently with the Albany Firebirds. That must make you happy. Indoor guy, played edge for them as well. So they signed 2 people on the defensive line here. It feels like BC is trying to ramp up and maybe understand that they have a little bit of a weakness at that spot, you would think, right?
Definitely agree, and I think they got 2 high caliber players here. Walden's obviously probably more of a rotational depth piece. Levi Bell, though, he's we've talked about him quite a bit for his UFL success, but he played well in the UFL, got an NFL opportunity, and that's why he's available right now. So I think this is a big move by BC, and I think you put him on the opposite side of man, I'm blanking his name right now. Why am I blanking his name? the defensive lineman that they signed to the huge contract. Anyway, you bring in more depth on that defensive lineman. You bring in a guy who could potentially start and add quality snaps opposite of your premier pass rusher. And all of a sudden, you round out this pass rush a little bit. But I'm super excited for the move to bring in Bell because I think he can be an impact, and then excited as always to see Walden, an indoor football guy, get an opportunity. And actually, to add to that, there was another recent move. I think it was BC as well, if I remember correctly. They brought in defensive back and linebacker Joe Faucha. He was with the Bay Area Panthers. And he won IFL Defensive Player of the Year, and now he's with BC as well, if I remember correctly. So don't quote me on that, but I believe he was also signed recently. So
I'm actually surprised we don't see more IFL to CFL type jumps because they mirror each other so well play style for the most part. I know the IFL has a little more restrictions when it comes to defensive, like how they're structured and stuff, but overall play style feels very similar. So I'm really not surprised. I'm really shocked that we don't see more of the IFL jump to the CFL, but maybe with more exposure happening with the IFL, because I mean, let's face it, a lot of indoor and arena exposures kind of has gained traction in the last few years. Some of it not so good, but overall has gained some traction with like some eyes on it. So maybe these teams are starting to pay a little more attention to this stuff. So um, you know, maybe we'll see more
I
of it.
certainly hope so. I certainly hope so. I do know that with Chris Jones out in Edmonton, I feel like it's slowed down a little bit this year. And seemingly he would sign a ton of IFL players every year. That's how guys like Leon O'Neal ended up with the Houston Roughnecks. He played with Edmonton last season. Justin Rankin, who came from the Frisco Fizers, who's been a huge piece for the Edmonton as of late. Guys like that. So unfortunately, I don't really understand why there isn't more attention on indoor football leagues when it comes to the CFL. Like you mentioned, the similarities in play with the high motion, the 1 yard off the line of scrimmage, some of the other different things that force defensive linemen to be a little bit more creative with how they get to the passer. And there's just multiple reasons why I would think that it would make more sense, specifically with defensive backs. That's kind of the one area. Defensive backs, quarterbacks, and wide receivers, because of the high motion. You would think that timing and the ability to get that timing down somewhere else would come into play. But it is kind of surprising that we don't see more of this so far. There's a couple different players that I could list off the top of my head that I think should be in the CFL right now. A guy like Riverius Rivers, who was the IFL Defensive Player of the Year last year and then went to Memphis Showboats for a little while. He would be a great signing. Michael Lawson from Southwest Kansas, great cover guy when it came to the high motion. I could go on and on for days, so we won't do that. But moving on, Saskatchewan also signed a UFL player, Chris Russell Jr., a linebacker who had spent some time with the UFL as well. Mike Mitchell recently told us there was going to be quite a few moves with the UFL to see guys released to pursue these opportunities with the CFL. And I personally think it's great. I think allowing these players to double dip is a good opportunity for them, even if it's like a guy that's, maybe he's a starter in the UFL, he goes up to the CFL and he finishes out the season on the practice squad, or, regardless, it's giving players opportunities to, first of all, stay in game shape, second of all, to continue to earn money playing football, and then to third of all, be available for the next UFL season, because the CFL season ends long before UFL begins. So
Yep.
I personally think this is something that the UFL should lean a little bit more into, which I've heard that they had actually been reluctant to do so this year. But I personally think that if you kind of I don't want to say work out a partnership, because it's never going to be quite that cut and dry. But if you allow players that flexibility, I think that you're going to be rewarded with those players coming back a lot of the times.
I think that once we see the UFL become a little more, stable and established, because let's face it, there were some, questions coming out of this year. The new ownership group seems to be exactly the new owner seems to be exactly what the UFL needed. I think we'll start seeing maybe a little bit less of this down the road. But right now, I think it's great, and I think it's beneficial for the CFL as well, because the CFL's never been a long-term league. They very rarely sign people to multiple-year deals. It's usually 1 year, here and there, unless it's like the quarterback position. It seems like the quarterback position is the only thing that they really lock down for any super length of time. But everything else seems to be like a year-to-year base for the CFL, and they've kind of operated like this for years, and I think it's worked for them. But a lot of American players, um, for whatever reason, are reluctant to go out of the country. They want to stay home. Obviously, I think it's probably friends and family that want to play. So not all of them may even want to go up to the CFL and play, which is possible. I get it. It's just I think that if I was a player, I'd be going wherever I can to be on the field personally. But back to Chris Russell. Loved him at Texas A&M. He was with Green Bay, I think, 2 years ago as well. Like, he was in the practice squad over there, and preseason as well. He had a prolific career at Texas A&M. A little undersized, but I think he's a little bit faster for linebackers, and I think that's perfect. A perfect fit for the CFL. So Maybe he catches on with Saskatchewan and gets some playing time here down the stretch, because with the playoff push coming up, the depth and injuries, maybe Russell sees the field and makes a difference for them. Be interesting to watch. He's a name to watch out for, in my opinion. I really like this guy a lot.
Completely agree, and I think he fits the CFL style very well. And I like the point you made that a lot of players may not even want to go to the CFL in the first place because of the proximity, benefit of being in the UFL. Maybe some fans or some of your fans, friends, family can come see you play in person and stuff like that. But then also the NFL aspect of that. The UFL is a lot easier transition to the NFL. So it seems like on a year-to-year basis, we see a lot more UFL players signed by the NFL. So I think a lot of players are going to be hesitant to make the jump to the CFL, when it's a half a season and it's really not for a long-term thing. But a player like Max Duggan, who's been in the NFL, may never make it back, is a guy who makes a lot of sense. Joe Wallace, he's been in the UFL for several seasons now. He's probably, to the point where his NFL window is starting to shrink. A CFL move makes sense for him. Some of these other guys as well. So I think you hit the nail on the head with that one.
Yeah.
I
just feel like that some of these guys probably, don't necessarily want North. I know there were some people that wanted you talk to a lot of players and they'll tell you that the ultimate quote unquote goal is to get back to the United States to play. And, I think that you just play where you can, in my opinion. I talked about this numerous times about building a brand and whatnot. So find a home and, stick with it as long as you can. And if you can't, try somewhere else. That's just how I look at it. But, it is what it is. Speaking of Green Bay Packers, because Chris Russell was there 2 years ago, Taylor Elgersma, quarterback, Canadian quarterback for that matter, will not return to the practice squad for the Packers. They did not re-sign him after cutting him this preseason. They were reportedly looking for someone with a little more experience. What do you think? You think he should opt to finish the season with the CFL?
I absolutely do. Obviously, I think he should give it a little bit of time, see if any other NFL team wants to bring him in on a practice squad, or, kind of empty out all of his opportunities with the NFL first. But, I would say if you're not signed in 2-3 weeks, it's probably time to be looking at the CFL and get things going there. I think with him in particular, it doesn't affect him as much to jump into the CFL game right freshly out of the NFL in terms of his chances to come back and get another opportunity, because he's coming from the Canadian game in the first place. So I know that's kind of a weird way to look at things, but I personally think that he has a little bit more flexibility when it comes to his NFL window with making that move.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if he's going to get another chance. I mean, you think about the NFL as a whole, the influx of quarterback talent that comes in every year. I just hope for him in his sake is, does he get the Nathan Rourke treatment, and is he able to come back and immediately be considered a success story and get an opportunity somewhere? You take a look at the CFL and there's no shortage of quarterback injuries in the CFL, unfortunately. And you think about where can he possibly sign that would make a difference for him. Chances are he's probably not going to play right away. Montreal would have been considered a point for him, but with them signing, Shea Patterson and Cameron Dukes and the timing of him being with Green Bay, it kind of, might have shut that window with him. So you really kind of wonder where a team might want to bring him in where he's going to make a difference. But for him, I would think coming back to the CFL would be the correct choice. You seem to have a home there, and like I just talked about, it's you can always come back, to the CFL for him. So being Canadian also helps that ratio for some teams, and I just think it goes to show how hard it is to make the transition one way or the other. And I was actually thinking about this, Sam, and get a little more off topic here just for a second. Well, it's not really off topic, but we talked in the past about how hard it is to transition from 11-man to 12-man or 12-man to 11-man. is it fair to say that it's easier for non-positional players to make that transition, such as like linebackers or D linemen or offensive linemen, either from the CFL, well, we'll say the CFL to the NFL, than it is positional players like wide receivers and quarterbacks?
I think so. Definitely. You might have wide receivers in the CFL that are very productive, very capable guys, but they're buoyed by the fact that they can have that high motion or the waggle, to kind of help them get separation and stuff. And I could see that being a situation where, certain players just aren't going to transition well to the NFL. You're looking for a certain kind of player, but then also on the quarterback aspect, the way we've discussed on the show before, you have that 12th man, which is a factor when you're looking at passing lanes and windows and wondering whether or not a guy can jump a pass and stuff like that. So I do think that when it comes right down to it, I think that the two different, well, let me back up. The one position group that really has the advantage to make the jump between the two leagues is the offensive line, because I think your offensive line play is virtually the same no matter where. I mean, yes, you have that 1 yard from the line of scrimmage for the defensive line, and that's a distinct advantage and helps the offensive line, obviously. But at the same time, there's only so much you can do as an offensive lineman in terms of blocking schemes and stuff like that. So I think they have probably the easiest transition. It's probably very close second, interior defensive lineman. And then maybe, defensive ends have a little bit harder time. And then linebackers, honestly, I think are pretty cut and dry. I mean, it's, again, I don't think that the concepts are a ton different from league to league on that position group. So that's a really good point and something that I hadn't previously considered.
Well, I was thinking about it because between Taylor, Elgersma and Ajou Ajou, who we'll talk about in a little bit here, and some of these other, wide receivers and quarterbacks, it feels like the CFL really holds on to the few success stories of CFL players making the jump to the NFL and then having good careers at the NFL. Like, they really hold on to that, which is fine. It's enamored in tradition for you. It's enamored in your history. So, you love that. But I feel like that there's more and more success stories of non-positional players, the non-wide receivers, the non-quarterbacks, the non-running backs, uh, making name stays at the NFL level, and it's usually like linebackers or some cases cornerbacks. But it seems more like linebackers, defensive linemen, and O linemen tend to be kind of the more success stories. And I feel like the CFL doesn't hold on to that as much, and it just makes me wonder why a guy like Alex Singleton isn't planted all over the place. You know, um,
Right.
Just in general. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that he's probably been one of the most successfuls outside of maybe Warren Moon or Doug Flutie, but he's been a fairly successful story in his career. Led the NFL in tackles at one point in time. So I was just curious if you think that is an easier transition for certain positions over others. So.
No, I think that's a really good point, and it definitely is. And that's also a good point about Alex Singleton. I mean, that dude's had a hell of an NFL career so far. I think he's what, like 5, 6, it might even be 7 years in since he's made the jump from the CFL. I think it was 2018, yep. 2019, something like that. So, yep. I think that's a great point from him as well. I mean, that dude, he should be the poster child right now. I mean, recency bias is a true thing. When you're talking about players and stuff, you want players, you want the best players, prove that you can make the jump to the NFL. And I mean, I know that we've talked about that. We don't really like these leagues to position themselves as developmental leagues, but you don't necessarily have to scream, look, this guy made the jump to the NFL. You just parade him as the poster child. You don't necessarily have to be like to point out that he made the jump from the CFL. Just keep him involved in the league to an extent. But no, I think that's a great point.
Well,
then, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. I didn't realize you had a point there, so go ahead.
I was just gonna say, quick reminder: Elgersma's rights are held by the Blue Bombers, so that could be a pretty interesting
The Blue
situation
Bombers,
for him to
Winnipeg, yeah.
go sit and learn behind Claros and Strevler, and maybe be the long-term version of Strevler for Winnipeg. So that'd be something I'd keep an eye out on over the next couple weeks. He does have a workout with the New York Giants, or did. That was 2 days ago that was posted.
Yeah. No, to just piggyback off your developmental league comments, like you don't even necessarily have to position Alex Singleton as a guy who, it's a developmental league, but you can say, hey, like, look, you can still make a name for yourself here and give yourself a chance. Like, you just got to give CFL a chance, and I feel like that they don't do that well enough. And it's kind of disappointing to see because there is no reason to say, we're a developmental league for the NFL, but ultimately, if you ask an American player what their ultimate goal is, most football players say the NFL, right? So that's why you see guys constantly leaving the CFL to try out for the NFL. Nathan Rourke's of the world, the Taylor, Elgersmas, the Ajou Ajous of the world. Like you see on a very consistent basis. However, I think that the CFL can be like, look, we still have an established league here. You can still come here, play, get out there, and maybe you get recognized. Alex Singleton is a perfect poster child for that. And I feel like it's a missed opportunity because they want to hold on to years past, which is cool, rich traditions and stuff, and your history, lean into it. But Alex Singleton's part of that history, and I feel like that you're missing a huge opportunity over the last few years to get him really postered everywhere. So
I definitely agree, and I feel like at one point they were kind of promoting him as kind of like a hero of the league, but it's fallen off, and maybe it's partially because of him, who knows. But that's definitely one thing that I would like to see them do a little bit more. And I've thrown this out here before. I probably will never gain any traction, but I think they should limit or relook at the limits for how players can sign with the NFL. So there's a certain point where CFL players cannot sign an NFL contract if they're signed to the CFL. And I think they need to shrink that date a little bit more to allow for players to get more NFL looks. And if they did, I think that would also long-term benefit them in getting the best caliber free agents, because then players would be more likely to sign and not necessarily hold themselves back from the NFL. But to move on, the next big piece of information, Toronto made another move recently. They traded a 7th-round pick in 2027 for long snapper Simon Chavez. So I believe, if I'm not mistaken, if I'm not mistaken, he was there before. Let's not sleep on long snappers, man. You'd never realize they're there until you have a bad one.
And that is absolutely the truth. However, the overall significance that they play is, I mean, for special teams, sure, but overall significance probably isn't as important. I mean, they're important, don't get me wrong, for special teams glue, because they're the foundation for it, but it's not, long snappers aren't going to win you a championship. So as much as I hate
may
to say
not
that,
win you one.
I played center, so I mean,
but they can lose you one.
I couldn't long snap for my life, so yes, I truly understand it. I was a grid shotgun snapper. I could not long snap for shit. So, I
completely different game.
Speaking of recent NFL cuts and CFL players, Ontaria Wilson, who played Florida State, he's a wide receiver. Samuel Jackson, they were both cut by the Jets. Ralph Holley was released by the Browns. Ajou Ajou was released by the Colts. He's returning to Saskatchewan as well. We'll get to a little bit of Ajou Ajou here in a minute, but you expect those other 3 guys that were listed on this doc, Ontaria Wilson, Samuel Jackson, and Ralph Holley, to return to the NFL, I'm assuming. I mean, to the CFL. Sorry.
Yeah, most likely. I could see Ralph Holley potentially going back to the UFL. He was previously in the USFL, I think for 2 seasons before the Stars went away, and then he went to the CFL. But I think at this particular moment, most of these guys likely do not have a ton of other NFL interest at this point. So I would assume that we see all of them up to finish out the year with their previous teams, or at least in the CFL. Maybe not their previous team, but Ralph Holley in particular, I think it might be kind of tough for him to get back with Toronto because they recently made some moves at the defensive line. But it'll be interesting to see what comes of all 3 of these players.
Yeah, and Ontario Wilson, I believe, was with Winnipeg, if I'm correct. He was a little bit of a depth piece to start off with, more so than anything else. And I could see them possibly bringing him back to help with the wide receiving core a little bit, especially with Winnipeg having an inconsistent season. He's familiar with the system. I think it will be probably pretty good for him to come back, and he had some big games for him. So, maybe he comes back and is a difference maker a little bit to help out them down the stretch. So.
Absolutely. We're going to hit a quick commercial break. We'll be right back.
This is Current. It's the card my parents used to pay me for mowing the lawn, running errands, and doing well in school. This is the card I used when we got the idea to make our own clothes. And we spread the word, drove downtown, and sold everything we made. This is the card I use to do the things that really matter. This is Current. Visit current.com and download the app for free today.
I'm just being myself, cool as can be. When I'm being myself, you wish you were me. It's so easy. Get out your own way. It's just so easy.
Cool McCain.
You thought you wanted Gunther against Chad Gable, but you didn't. And I'm going to tell you why. Chad Gable would take everything that Gunther's done and bury it.
The Playmaker.
It was on site. AJ Styles walked out there, seen LA like, oh, okay, then LA Knight hopped out the car, let's go.
Break down everything in TNA, AEW, and all of the WWE programming. Join these 2 kings, monarchs of wrestling, live every Monday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Central on the Play Caller Sports Talk YouTube channel.
All right. If you're a wrestling fan, make sure to check out Monarchs of Wrestling tomorrow evening. I'm all thrown off because it's Labor Day right now. I'm like, wait a minute, I don't work tomorrow. That's not right. So definitely check out that. And then also, I haven't said it yet, but if you want to go check out our merchandise at brandingblanks.com, we would really appreciate any purchases on that front. It's one of the best ways to support this channel. Don't want to throw a bunch of merchandise or ask you to spend a bunch of your hard-earned money. We get it. Life's difficult. It's expensive. If you would love it. If not, completely understand. But moving on, I'm pretty excited about this next piece of news. Cam Eccles-Looper, one of my first guests on this channel, 4 years ago at this point, signed by Winnipeg. He was previously with the Calgary Stampeders. His professional career got off the ground with the New Jersey Generals back in 2022. He actually went undrafted in the USFL selection process, was kind of freaking out, didn't really know what his future held. And then the Generals called him shortly after that. And then he turned into kind of a really, really valuable depth piece for them, and then has kind of carved out a career in the CFL now. So really excited for Cam Eccles-Looper. Got a chance to congratulate him. Super excited to see what he can do with Winnipeg. Hopefully he gets some meaningful snaps there with them.
Yeah, I think these two moves with Winnipeg and Saskatchewan, touching back on Ajou Ajou real quick, are good moves for them because they're both guys that can provide instant, and I mean instant, success. They can come in and really help elevate a team. And Winnipeg has been. We just talked a little bit about Ontario Wilson coming in. They've had kind of an inconsistent season. This move could actually prevent Ontario Wilson going back to Winnipeg, to be honest with you, because I really like Cam Eccles. I liked him when he was with Calgary, and I think that he can come in and make an impact and actually have a long-term career with Winnipeg. And I think it's a perfect fit. He blends well with what they do offensively, and he can separate. So I'm excited for him, and hopefully he's able to carve out a long-term thing with them down there. And Ajou Ajou with Saskatchewan just made sense. He was with them before. The only reason why he's really getting any kind of NFL looks right now is because he's still fairly young. I think he's only like a year or two removed from college. So my guess is he's still in that window of teams wanting to try him out to see if they can get a depth out of him. But I think he needs to make his home right there in Saskatchewan. So.
Definitely don't disagree. Honestly, not a bad spot for him. And if he wants to try out the NFL a couple more times, I completely understand. But like you said, he's still very young. I want to say he's like 24, 25, something like that.
Yeah, he's not very old at all. I think he's 2 years removed from school. So.
One thing to consider with the Cam Eccles Looper signing is he's a very, very quality kick returner, and Trey Vival is the primary kick returner for Winnipeg. Does a great job in the punt return game with a 13.5 at-yard average, but pretty middle of the pack when it comes to kick return with 24.18, although he has scored a touchdown this season. So watch for that. Could be a potential change coming at the kick return position, but we shall see later today, I believe. So should be interesting.
Shiloh Sanders and Clayton Toon have been added to the Toronto Argonauts negotiation list, and the Rough Riders added the Easton Stick. These are the types of players that I really honestly, Clayton Toon specifically and Easton Stick specifically, are the types of players that I think would benefit from bouncing back and forth between the UFL and CFL for a few years. They stuck around the NFL for a while. They've been just Easton Stick stuck with the Chargers for a little bit because basically they were familiar with them. And now with a new coaching staff, you can see how fast your career is basically, vanished in the NFL part. And that's part of the political part of it, the politicking part of it. And when you take a look at a guy like Shiloh Sanders, he went undrafted, got himself suspended or fined for throwing a punch, got himself ejected from a game. And I don't know. I just feel like these are the types of guys that I think the CFL and UFL should be targeting. And when we talk about the CFL from this standpoint, it may not hurt one of these three or all three of these guys, honestly, to just negotiate with the CFL now and go up and get paid. Because I don't believe any of the three are sticking around in practice squads yet. Clayton Toon may have. I feel like I may have heard that he maybe went to Tampa Bay, I think. But Shiloh and Easton, I haven't heard anything about. So why not? Why not?
Easton Stick apparently did sign with the Falcons practice squad.
Okay, I hadn't seen that. So
nor had I. I honestly, it happened like 3 days ago, the 28th.
Okay. So I just may have missed
thought
it.
Shiloh returned on the Bucks practice squad, but I think that was like a speculation thing. Like the expectation was for him to return there, but I personally think is the very same thing as you. What does Easton Stick at 29 or 30 years old gain from being on the Falcons practice squad? The dude's he's developed. He's not going to magically have some change of heart overnight and become an elite quarterback. That's not going to happen. Especially when you're on the bench and you're not playing anything but preseason games. So I personally think you're right. I mean, a guy like that, I know this was a topic in our group chat recently and I was the one who brought it up, but that's why on one hand, I love the practice squad thing where you can have players that are of any age on your practice squad. It's awesome. It set up a situation where Josh McCown extended his career at one point, became a coach basically on a practice squad before he ever became a coach. But at the same time, I think it takes away some opportunities from younger players, right? So right now, Easton Stick is signed to the Falcons practice squad at 30 years old. The dude's made something like $12, $13 million throughout his career over the past several seasons. You know what he's going to be. He's never going to get really any better than he is. Why not move on from that guy, bring in a younger player who, hasn't shown you what he is yet, let him develop, and then have a guy like Stick go to the CFL and finish out his career, or go to the UFL and finish out his career as a quarterback there. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me overall. I think there should be some sort of age limit or years of service limit. Like if you've been in the NFL for 7 seasons, you should not be able to be allowed on a practice squad. But unfortunately, it's just the way that it is, and I don't think it's going to change anytime soon thanks to COVID. So it's one of those things that just it bugs me a little bit, because Easton Stick should be a guy that we should be paying attention to in the CFL at this point.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think he has a good enough skill set that I think it would end up being fairly successful up there, to be honest with you. And we take a look around the CFL, and the CFL has a bunch of older quarterbacks, right? Like we talked about this a couple times. The average age of the starting quarterback is pretty up there for most leagues. So, I think that this would be a perfect time for Easton to kind of just step away from the NFL and go see if he can, again, name brand. You made $13 million. Like, hopefully you were smart with it, and if you weren't, then I don't know what to tell you. Like, give me $13 million, and I don't think I'd be stupid about it with it. But
agreed. And I mean, if you look at the grand scheme of things, I know money rules everything, right? So dude's going to make 260 some thousand on the practice squad, I believe it is. And he could go to the CFL, and yes, he's not going to make that 260 right away, but there's the potential that, through the next season or two, he gets to the point where he takes over a starting job and he's making $500,000 a season. So, there's the potential there to make more money in the CFL at this point, because I don't see a situation where an NFL team is going to bring him up from the practice squad unless there's, they have a rash of injuries. So it'll be interesting to see how things go for him, though. Yeah,
I mean, and again, it's neither here nor there with Stick. He'll figure it out on his own for sure. Big injury with Winnipeg, and this may be the reason why they signed Cam Eckel-Loopers. Nick Dembski got hurt. He has a head injury. I think it's probably a concussion. It was weird though, because we were talking about this, right? Like I'm pretty sure that we were talking about this injury, and the tackle didn't even really look all that like devastating. And suddenly he stood up, and then kind of like it scared me for a moment, because it reminded me of the Damar Hamlin situation. Like he stood up and then he kind of like collapsed again. And so it kind of like scared me a little bit there, because I was like, hopefully this isn't a repeat of this, because it wasn't a hard hit, but like you see somebody stand up and then they go right back down. It's pretty crazy. So the Cam Eccles signing could easily been the reaction to this injury, but that's a huge loss for them. Because Dembski does a lot. He runs from the backfield. He's the motion guy. He's their slot receiver. And we talked about Winnipeg already having kind of an inconsistent season. Maybe they can rebound from this. What are your thoughts on this, and how does this impact Winnipeg moving down the stretch?
I think you're 100% correct. I think this is exactly the reason we see Cam Eckel-Loopers signed by Winnipeg, and it is a huge blow to Winnipeg. And honestly, I can't overstate that enough, because like you said, Dembski does a lot of different things for this offense. He's not simply a slot receiver who just goes out and runs routes. He's got a value in a lot of different facets in the game. And he's also one of those I don't want to say tempo guys, but energy guys. He gets going, the team comes with him type of thing. So I think he's a very valuable player to Winnipeg in particular, maybe even more valuable to Winnipeg than some of the other teams in the league if he were with them. But I think it's a big blow. And I mean, you have to wonder, like you said, the hit when it originally happened was not something that I was like, oh, okay, like he's going to be hurt or anything. It was one of those situations where until he got up and, like you said, kind of staggered and like sat back down or fell back down, I didn't think anything of it. And then when that happened, I was, like you said, concerned, because you have to wonder about his history with concussions, right? We've seen it in the past where some of these guys have had a history with concussions, and it gets to the point where it seems like it's almost more likely for them to get further concussions. And if that's the case, then you have to wonder about the longevity of his career if, that becomes something that's a reoccurring issue for him. At some point you have to protect yourself and protect your body. And if you're getting reoccurring concussions, I think that's one of those situations where you probably just need to step away from the game. So let's hope this is a one-time event for him, and it's not something where it's developing to be an issue long-term. And, maybe that's just something I've read into a little bit with concussions from following football, but I really hope that's not the case for Dembski.
Yeah, and the other thing is like we speculated a little bit about the possibility of, the possibility of it happening on a play prior. You remember that we talked about that a little bit, where we talked about where
that's right.
It could have been like on the play prior or a play prior, and he just didn't realize it initially. We've seen that happen before in the past as well. So hopefully he can bounce back. Hopefully it's not nothing too serious, and we're able to, Winnipeg's able to move on from it. We see Dembski back out there. But speaking of injuries, Sam, the Ottawa Red Blacks seem to be the San Francisco 49ers of the North, huh?
Isn't that accurate? It's so bad. It's really just terrible. Every time I think that we're catching momentum and we're trending the right direction, we have 3 or 4 more injuries that are very substantial injuries. Drew Brown's been in and out of the lineup all season. Dustin Crumb's started games, but it's never been consistent. It's a game here, it's a game there. And I think that's really what's kind of hurting us. Is it's a bunch of little injuries piling up. It's nothing like serious injuries. These guys are not going on IR more often than not, or on the 6-game injury list more often than not. So basically they're running into a situation where the roster gymnastics that are having to come with all of this is getting to be very tough. Right. So they just made a trade for defensive back Mark Milton. I think he was actually from Winnipeg before. He played for a little bit in the UFL as well. And that has something to do with injuries, because we've lost so much depth at the secondary that it's one of the youngest secondaries in the league in terms of CFL experience. So I think this is something that it's been rough to be a Red Blacks fan this season and for the past couple seasons, because it seems like there's a reoccurring issue there for Ottawa. So I don't know if it's training staff or it's just chance or it's the players that they bring in having previous injury histories or what it may be, but there's a multitude of issues here when it comes to the injuries that just they can't seem to get over.
Well, I want to give a shout out to the CFL Stats Geek for this little bit of tidbit here, talking about games lost to injury based on position, and Ottawa has 103. I don't know if that's long term. I mean, all time, or what it dates back to. But the next closest is 59, according to this sheet. It looks like ironically enough, you've supposedly lost 18 games due to fullback, which is interesting. I'm not sure. Your fullback has been, lost 18 games on that or whatever it is. I'm assuming that this is based upon how many games were missed due to it per position. So You had fullback had
Yeah.
18 games. You had 25 offensive linemen 25 games missed from offensive linemen. Like that is a lot of games to be missed per position. So,
Yeah.
20 for DB, which we talked about in the past. So, you've had 103 collective games missed due to injury. And that's, I'm assuming games lost means games missed.
Yeah. It definitely is.
Situation. So, but the 103 missed games from overall position standpoint. So,
And I think that's just this season, if I'm not mistaken. So,
yeah, that's a lot of games.
Yeah, it's been insane. And that's one of the reasons why, a guy like Samuel Jackson earlier we talked about who was released by the Jets, I believe, was recently with the UFL, but has some experience in the CFL before. I think he should be on Ottawa's list. He's already been in Ottawa once before. He knows the offense. He knows the CFL gameplay. I mean, you need depth. You might as well go get that guy right now. So there's a couple players like that out there that I think could really benefit Ottawa. But like I said, they just can't get any momentum. And I think, unfortunately, at this point, this season's basically a lost cause.
Yeah, I agree. Unfortunately for Ottawa, that is anyways, because on paper, they looked like they had a pretty solid season ahead of them as well. So
yeah, I was excited. I went into the season very optimistic about their chances of being a quality team again. He made the playoffs for the first time in basically my time of being a fan. So I was really excited about the future, and it just wasn't the case. But part of the reason why has been some of the penalty issues we've had as well. I mean, pull up this is also from CFL Stats Geek, so shout out to them. Thank you for all the work that you do. You do great work. Toronto has 93 penalties taken, 48 of which were preventable. Ottawa's third on that list with 80, and 35 were preventable. They are tied at that preventable ranking with BC, but BC has 9 more penalties. And then you look at the quality teams, or the teams that are winning, maybe in spite of their talent on their roster, and you look at Winnipeg, they only have 64 penalties. Hamilton has done really well in that category as well. Calgary, Montreal, Edmonton, all these guys are substantially below those top 3 teams. It's kind of honestly surprising to see how big of a difference there is there. So definitely crazy to see how things have happened for Ottawa this year. But as much as I hate to say it might be time to close the book on the chapter that is Bob Dice's head coaching career in Ottawa. And I love the guy. He's a lot of fun. His post-game press conferences, he's very engaging. But at the same time, I mean, you can only like a guy so much if he continues to lose. And right now it's just not looking very, very positive. And I think it might be time for a full coaching staff reset top to bottom.
Yeah. Yep. I'm beginning to come around to that. Normally I'm not a big fan of firing coaches, early in their contracts or whatever it may be, but I think it's definitely something amiss there. It feels like you're just not as disciplined as you should be in capacity. The interesting thing I found on that list, though, outside of Ottawa, was Saskatchewan is 4th on that list, and they are so dominant. Could you imagine how much more dominant they would be if they just cut out those penalties? I mean, that'd be crazy.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, you have to wonder if the result of that Calgary and Saskatchewan game recently isn't a little bit different if Saskatchewan can get out of their own way there.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, one topic I did not have on this, and one I'm sure you'll love to talk about is Calgary the top team in the CFL right now?
I think it's still Saskatchewan, but I think Calgary is definitely probably close. I mean, it's really hard to take it away from Saskatchewan right now with the way they are. I picked Calgary last week in the Pick'em League, but I just felt that Saskatchewan was just due for a loss more than it was necessarily Calgary's better per se. I really honestly just feel that the Saskatchewan Calgary teams are most likely the top 2 teams in the league and could very well be your Grey Cup preview, I still just can't count out Winnipeg until they're out. Like, it's just the way that Winnipeg is. You know, they're just so, and they seem to have, I don't know. So some of these other teams still worry me a little bit. Montreal, if Davis Alexander gets healthy, is still a team that I think it can be dangerous. It's just that they're dealing with injuries right now, and I think that's what's kind of derailed their season a little bit more than, you know, Calgary or Saskatchewan. And so until they're the final 2 teams standing, I can't for sure say that those are the top 2 teams, but it certainly feels like they're the top 2 teams.
I would agree. I mean, I was saying it before in the off season that I really liked what Calgary did, but I did not see this. I did not see this at all. I knew they would turn around. I thought they'd be like, middle of the pack team, but man, kudos to that staff, because I had very little faith that with all the changes and everything that Craig Dickinson was going to be able to really kind of salvage this thing. And here we are. And so, kudos to him and that staff, because they've done a really good job of turning things around. And it's kind of crazy to think that, one of the guys they let go was Mark Killam, who's became the head coach of the Edmonton Elks. So a lot of turnover there in Calgary, and somehow they found the right pieces to put together. So it's been fun to watch this season. They've been a lot of fun, specifically due to that offense that they rebuilt this offseason. How's it going in the year-long football pick'em for you?
Well, thankfully, because I picked Calgary last week, I ended up getting back on the right winning track after I missed 2 weeks ago somehow, and then lost the following week. So I got back on track. I have a 2-game lead on my second place guy in my division. So, well, it's 2.5 because he has a tie. So, yeah, I mean, it's going all right. Looks like I'll probably make the playoffs in this one as well. Hopefully we'll see what happens from there. But, yeah, they're going good so far. Shout out to yearlongfootball.com, by the way, for providing this fun little, I mean, it's free, but it's fun. So, yeah, I just joined a high school football one that he's going to try.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
How is that even being done? Is it regional?
So basically what it is you pick games in your opponent's states and you pick games in your home state. And that's basically about it. It's just, and then you have point systems and whatever else, but he takes a certain amount of games and runs with it from there. And yeah.
Wow. Wow, that's crazy. So yeah, like you said, shout out to yearlongfootball.com. Completely free to sign up. They have like everything. They have Gaelic football on there. They've got Aussie rules. They've got Japanese football, European football, Canadian football, NFL, UFL, indoor leagues, college football, all of it. It's quite a bit of fun, and they've been very gracious to help promote us as well here at Shady Sports Network. If you go to their page right now, you'll see our logo right there on the homepage, and they've added us to basically every one of their pick'em challenges at this point. It's been a lot of fun to keep track of and try and follow along with. Michael's had quite a bit of success, so has Krish. I have not done nearly as well, but still trucking along. And we just are about to start the NFL season, so let's see if I can't redeem myself a little bit. But final topic for the day is the betting odds for this weekend, and wanted to go ahead and bring these up for you guys. I know I put in some bets this week. It was primarily because of the fact that I had to bet on the indoor football championship game. I just had to. It was going to happen. So I bet on that game, won a little bit of money, and decided to reinvest in some CFL games thanks to my partner here, Michael, who gave me some advice. And I think we're in pretty much in lockstep on these games here.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to think that this is going to be pretty clear cut, but who the hell knows? Some of these are interesting. Did you just bet straight money line, or?
I did. I was not going to do a parlay.
Little three. Well, you could have done a 3-leg parlay money line.
I'm so hesitant to do parlays because it's like, in my luck, I'll get 2 of them and then the third one won't hit or something like that. I'm just like, I don't know. I feel more comfortable just doing the money line more often than not.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I took money line on all 3 of them.
I'm taking Saskatchewan -3.5. I like this Winnipeg team. But they've been inconsistent. I think Saskatchewan is easily the strongest team in the league. They're my front runner. I talked about them being a dark horse candidate earlier this year, and they've really kind of answered the bell, in my opinion, and have moved to the top of the power rankings for me. I like this Winnipeg team. I still think they have some issues, but I would be comfortable taking Saskatchewan -3.5 in this case.
Completely agree. That's actually the pick I took as well. Saskatchewan's they're just one of those teams. You know, I got a lot of faith in them. Winnipeg's a tough team to read at this point. Sometimes they're hot, sometimes they're cold. So, yeah, Saskatchewan is the safe bet here for me as well. And as mentioned before, I just took the money line, so I didn't want to mess with the spread, although it might have been more worth my time, honestly.
It would have just been better odds for you if you had done that. That's all.
Absolutely.
Moving on to the next game, I'm actually taking Toronto +5.5 here. I know this seems very, very strange considering Toronto's had such a terrible season for the most part, but the Argos, I think they are gaining a little more confidence. Arbuckle looks like he's playing with a little more confidence as the year goes on, and I think that we're having, we're kind of seeing the Arbuckle that flashed and showed signs of success back when he was with Calgary, when they were trying to make him the successor, before Jake Mayer stepped in. So I like Toronto 5.5. You get 5.5 points. I think Toronto can win this game outright, but I like the 5.5 point spread just in case it's like a 2-point game. I think that taking Toronto's the smart money here.
I probably should have bet the spread on this one, but I actually took the money line on Toronto. So the odds are freaking awesome as far as that goes. I'll basically triple my bet, but at the same time, I am a little wary of this game. I'm not going to lie. This is definitely a pick 'em to me.
Hamilton's been really good this year. I mean, Hamilton has been surprisingly well, but if you're confident Toronto's going to win, going the money line is the best way to do it because you get your best odds. If you're unsure but you think that there's a good chance they could win, I take the 5.5. And for me, I think there's a good chance they can win. I'm not as confident, so I would take the safer odds or the safer bet with the 5.5 in this case. But if you're sold that Toronto, or you really honestly are like, my gut feeling is telling me Toronto's going to win this game outright, money line's the way to go here for sure. And then
Definitely
Calgary.
agree.
Yeah, Calgary and Edmonton. Normally 7.5, I try to avoid, especially with the way Edmonton's been playing. So in this case, I probably would take the straight out money line, and I would take Calgary in this one on the money line front. I think Calgary's going to win this game. I'm not sure how they're going to win this game, but I definitely think that they're going to win it in a capacity of whatever that score may be. 7.5 is actually it's a fairly big spread. It's over one possession or one touchdown. So, in a lot of cases, so this game could be a 5-point game for all we know. With the way Edmonton's been playing lately, it may not surprise me. So, but I would take Calgary money line because I think Calgary wins this game. So.
I took Calgary money line as well, but I think there is a scenario where, like you said, that 7.5 spread is way too big. You have to consider how Edmonton plays football. They're a very run-heavy team. They're going to try and control the ball, play defense. So I think this is going to be a low-scoring affair. I do still think Calgary takes home the win, but yeah, you're definitely right on that one. 7.5 is a large spread, especially with the way Edmonton's played as of late. They've been a scrappy team all season, but the past couple of games, it seems like they've really kind of got back into it. And keep in mind, technically Edmonton's 4-6, but I think they've got 2 or 3 one-score losses along the season, if I remember correctly. So that's a factor here as well. But with that being said, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that the only 2 bets that I would make on that game would be either Calgary money line or Edmonton plus 7.5. I don't think I would touch anything else. So
that's fair. 7.5 for Edmonton it feels a lot different than 7.5 for Calgary. I mean, that feels a lot easier to surmount for Edmonton. So
yeah,
definitely be interesting to see that game. But looks like we got a great weekend of CFL football planned, and hopefully you all watching today. Absolutely, and hopefully you all watching today have tomorrow off, so we can all enjoy some great CFL football together. Looking forward to all these games. What's your game of the week?
Calgary Edmonton. Actually, surprisingly, I like Toronto and Hamilton to probably be, when it's all said and done, probably maybe the best game of the week. But the game of the week for me is Edmonton and Calgary, just because Edmonton has been playing really, really well lately. They're kind of on a hot streak, and Calgary just came off a huge win last week. So you're talking about 2 teams that are hitting strides, in a stretch of the season that is a necessity to hit your stride in. And I feel like this could be either a really high scoring game, or unfortunately could end up being lopsided, but I don't think it's going to be in this case. Like you said, Edmonton's been scrappy all year. I suspect they'll be scrappy again against Calgary. And I'm really excited to see what this new look Edmonton team from the last few weeks is going to look like going against this high powered offense in Calgary.
My game of the week is actually Winnipeg and Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan losing against Calgary was a big boon for Winnipeg, who's kind of caught fire as of late. They've won the past couple games. So I think if they can beat Saskatchewan here, has major playoff implications. But I also agree that Toronto and Hamilton is probably that second game. Realistically, all 3 of these games should be really entertaining. But Hamilton and Toronto, I think, is going to be a really close game. So I'm expecting that one to be a good one as well.
Only reason I didn't pick Saskatchewan and Winnipeg is because I feel like that's going to be one of those knockdown, like, bar fights. I don't know if it's going to necessarily be the most entertaining at times, but it's going to be entertaining overall. It's just, I think there's going to be some lulls there. You're going to probably have some jerky motions, some jerky what's the word I'm looking for? Momentum throughout the course of the game.
Sense.
It's going to be very jerky. So that's the only reason why I said that.
No, that makes sense, honestly, and that is one of those games that could go. It could go either way. It could be a high-scoring affair, or it could be, like you said, there could be various stops throughout the game and be more of a defensive battle. We all know that Saskatchewan has done really well defensively this season against some quality teams. So it would not surprise me either way. Any final thoughts before we get out of here for the day?
No final thoughts from me, not this time. Just excited to see some CFL action this weekend. It should be the last time that we have a show where there's a CFL game afterwards.
That's a good point. So that should be a little bit easier to keep track of all the news and stuff coming up and have a little bit more to talk about as the season wears on. But yeah, really excited. It's been a great season so far. I appreciate all you guys tuning in every Saturday with us, and I apologize for every Sunday.
Labor Day's got you messed up, huh?
Yep. Every Sunday at 8 a.m. Eastern. I'm not on Around the Indoor Football World, which is every Saturday at 8 a.m. Eastern. Shameless plug there. But so definitely appreciate everybody who tunes in every Saturday or Sunday. God damn, I did it again. Every Sunday with us, and hopefully you guys stick with us. I mean, like I said, I know it's a little sporadic, but things should be calming down on my end of the world, and hopefully we can be a little bit more consistent the rest of the way. So I really appreciate all the support. If you haven't done so already, make sure to hit the like button wherever you're watching. That's huge for us. It really does wonders to push this out to new viewers and show that we have a pretty entertaining show here if you like it. So shares are also a big deal too. Retweet it, share it on your Facebook. If you're watching on YouTube, send the link to a friend. Send it to an enemy. If you have somebody you hate, send it to them too. So with that all being said, we'll catch you guys in the next episode. See you guys next Sunday.
Cool McCain.
You thought you wanted to go through against Chad Gable, but you didn't. And I'm going to tell you why. Chad Gable would take everything that Gunther's done and bury it.
The Playmaker.
It was on site. AJ Styles walked out there, seen LA like, oh, okay, then LA Knight hopped out the car, let's go.
Break down everything in TNA, AEW, and all of the WWE programming. Join these two kings, monarchs of wrestling, live every Monday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Central on the Play Caller Sports Talk YouTube channel.